Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will read a story about a woman who had a boyfriend that used her for her money and cheated on her, so she decided to take revenge on him. This is a two-part story, so be sure to like and subscribe for part 2. Let's get started. I need advice on cutting ties and disappearing from my ex's life. I'm 36 and I've been with Nick, 37, for 3 years. It wasn't perfect, but my perception is that we had an overall positive relationship until a year ago when I caught him cheating. I'm financially independent and have been a careful planner in terms of my finances. I'll be completely debt-free in 2 months. I had a hard time forgiving him, but he did everything to regain my trust. We had a somewhat smooth run for about 8 months. He asked me to help him start a business, which I did in part. I wrote the plan according to his idea and coached him through getting his permit and all other steps. He didn't follow through. First, it was that he didn't have time. Then it was that he was anxious because getting it off the ground wouldn't be immediate. So, in other words, I created a business for him where I would be his main client. This sounded like a happy medium since he wanted me to appoint him as my partner, and that's unthinkable. Some background before moving on, I went to college, and while being an average student, I worked hard. Later, when I found my first job to make up for not having an excellent academic record, I earned certificates and invested in my education however I could to improve my chances. It paid off. I've been self-employed since I was 28. When I met Nick, he told me he owned a small agency, but was about to get a government job since the economy wasn't helping. I was perfectly okay with that. Things were going well until I found out that he was seeing his ex. This was a huge blow for me because I didn't know what I did for him to do this. I did everything in my power to be supportive and be a reliable, significant other. I did my best to look nice for him, and I was contributing to the household. I paid half of everything, and it was my place. We had a long crisis until I chose to forgive and let go. During this new honeymoon phase, he got a better job, treated me with love, and was very attentive to my feelings. I did begin to see red flags. Just 2 months ago, he suddenly wanted me to be hands-off from his startup, didn't want to go out, and lost interest in sex. He became grouchy and rude. It was all about him and his needs, and he lost his job last year due to COVID. We moved to a house at least 11 months ago. I love the house, but it created friction between us. I'm an animal lover. My landlord doesn't interfere with my pet-related activities as long as I can keep the place clean. I built a catio for the 10-plus cats that I've rescued. It's an indoor space with a controlled temperature, and all the supplies are available to them 24/7. This was my dream. I wanted to help those kitties stay off the street since I'd been feeding them for years. Also, they have all their shots. Nick knew this from the start. The house is clean, no pet smells, thanks to the automatic cat litter boxes. He resented the cats because he wanted his family to move in. The answer was no. We never discussed this. He went as far as to ask me to get rid of the cats and suggested I put them up for adoption. The cats were not his expense. He hasn't worked a steady job in months. Well, I've helped him fund his business meetings because I didn't want to kill his dream. He does contribute, but significantly less. Anyways, I cannot live with this family. They are choosing beggars and moochers. The pattern is that he and his siblings break off their relationships as soon as babies are born. I realized this too late. Nick says his ex went crazy after she gave birth. His brother tricked his ex into moving with her parents while he found a home for them and the baby. He never found a house but knocked her up a second time, so her parents banned him from stepping into their home. The youngest brother hightailed his wife when she had her second baby. The oldest siblings and his mum lived together. His reason for wanting them to move in was that we had 3 spare bedrooms, plus a very large family room, and that it would be great if they saved on rent. So I guess there was no intention to contribute. Long story short, I got really sick about 5 weeks ago. I never got so much as a kind gesture from him. I cried due to body aches, and he just stayed away. His excuse is that I could have been contagious. It wasn't COVID. He never asked me if he could get me anything to eat and hardly ever came to check on me. I spent a lonely Thanksgiving while still recovering because he left to be with his family. My loved ones aren't near because I left everything for him. At some point, we talked about marriage, but here's the thing. I recently found out he is back with his side chick. I was going to hire a private investigator, but it's not worth it. I already know what I need to know. I got a hold of his phone and found about 3 weeks' worth of texts. They are definitely having sex. I've held this inside of me because at first I was in too much pain to confront him. I don't wish it on anybody. We are hardly on speaking terms, and he hasn't even bothered to ask me what's wrong. I didn't find anything on his girlfriend's social media, Laura. I did find more than I needed to know from her mother's profile. He has been active in their lives since at least last summer and has been lying to me. This hits close to home. While he's been lying to me about going to job interviews without any luck, I've been partially financing his lifestyle. He has a so-called business trip to the British Virgin Islands. I no longer think there is a business involved, or he may be combining business with something else. I don't know if this is a fake business conference or what, and I don't want to know. I did see Laura's mother's social media, and she vaguely mentions the trip abroad. I'm leaving him first because of the pain he's causing me, and second because he's a liar. I need advice to see if there's anything I'm leaving out of my to-do list, as I'll be disconnecting from him. I am not granting him the luxury of knowing that I'm pulling the rug in advance. I already talked to the landlord as I'll be leaving the house slightly earlier. I'll be using Nick's trip to uproot myself. I already hired a company that specializes in pet transport since I'm concerned about flying pets and cargo. I have all their health certificates in order, so they will be coming to pick my kittens up by 9 a.m. Nick's flight leaves much earlier, so he needs to be out by 6 a.m. I'm moving closer to my family, and I've already made arrangements to board my pets until a new catio is built for them. My sister will take care of it. I will be living on my own property. I've arranged for the movers to come the same day in the afternoon. That way, I'll have time to pack and separate my stuff from his. I'll have all his personal items shipped to his mother's house because I don't want any personal interaction. All business efforts have been cancelled. I've made sure he gets no access to my clients and deleted the business plan, etc. I need to change all my passwords and all the pins on all my cards, and the Visa I've allowed him to use for emergencies because he might be able to draw from it. I also need to drain the bank account I let him use for business expenses and close it. I think it's best to do it while he's flying to keep him from using them. I don't know if I'm leaving anything out. I will leave immediately to avoid any surprises, his family coming to confront me, etc. He can now move in with his girlfriend if he wants. She lives with his parents, but he will no longer be my problem. Any suggestions? I'd hate to leave any loose ends. Update. First of all, thanks to all of you who took the time to send me your good wishes and pieces of advice. You've been really helpful. I take your good faith to heart. I created a checklist with all your suggestions to make sure that I made a clean exit, or as clean as possible. The pet transport service was on time. I'm glad that my cats made it safely. My sister was very helpful and took care of the new catio, which will be the entire middle bedroom. It's very spacious, bigger than my old catio, and they will be happy there. I'm not too crazy about outdoor catios because I love keeping them indoors. They can enjoy sightseeing from the windows. Nick seemed to be in a hurry to leave. I thought he might leave by 6 a.m., but he left before 5. I spent the night, or most of it, cancelling services he wouldn't notice and keeping things in order. I'm glad I never gave up my home office. He wanted me to give it up so that we could use the room to accommodate his family. He already had the mental picture that I should do it, plus give up my cat so that the catio would become an additional bedroom. I find the home office really useful as I need to have a separate mental space. This is how I close my workday, log off, and avoid constantly checking work on the computer. I could never do that if I kept my office space where I slept. So I locked myself all night to work on removing any link to him. Still painful, but my resentment is helping me despise him even more. After he left, I was able to separate his belongings from mine until the pet transport came in. I was nervous thinking that he might suddenly show up, but thankfully it didn't happen. I stopped by to donate his business suits on my way to the bank. A scumbag doesn't need nice suits. I don't know why I let him talk me into getting him nice clothes to look presentable at work meetings. He never completed anything, not even after business meetings. I also donated all our unopened food. I hate throwing away food. I got a list of documents the bank required to close and drain accounts, so I'm glad the teller was helpful. I took advice from Redditors and went to a different branch to avoid familiarities between Nick and the bank workers. I locked my credit, reported all cards as stolen, including his emergency visa and the ATM card he used for occasional business expenses, and removed him from all my reward systems, pharmacy, supermarket, etc. I changed my phone number a bit later, so there's no way he can use them. The main reason for me to keep my old number for a short while was to avoid being disconnected should his family call. If they called, I would be warned that something was up. Mainly, I tried to use his 8 hours of air travel to disable all financial ties to avoid confrontation. The movers took a little longer because some furniture needed disassembling. I gave them all his tools and the workbench that I gifted Nick. They also helped me take down the catio. I had to let the landlord keep the bed as I'm repulsed. All his belongings were documented and shipped to his mother. I was told it could take a day or two. The landlord already got the keys. I left as soon as possible after cleaning up because I was nervous he would call his family in case he tried to use the cards and they would show up at my place. I donated most of my clothing, same place where I left Nick's suits, to avoid triggering memories. I don't need all that stuff. I'm not a fancy dresser, so whatever replacements I get won't be expensive. I took all the electronics I bought for him, game console, tablet, desktop. The latter was my effort to help him build an office, more on the tablet later. So I left for a bed and breakfast about 4 hours away to make sure I didn't run into his family. I'm still tired and mentally exhausted, but I am satisfied that I did it before Nick landed in the British Virgin Islands. Tried to use the cards, found out, sent someone since he was blocked from my phone, etc. I kept finding things that made me feel even more stupid. But what's done is done. I opened this external memory to delete any of the files that I created and found an e-business card with access, an outside check name as Chief Marketing Director for the company I created for him. This is beyond dishonesty. Please, Marketing Director, my arse! They are living in a dream. And that's the end part 1 of this story. What do you guys think about the story so far? Let me know in the comment, and I will see you in the next video.